for Indian economy, you have to have some basic foundation to begin with. There's many of you who come up who talk about how you guys are very new to this subject, you don't know anything about this subject, and this exam is a very issue-centric exam. So most questions will be around issues facing the Indian economy, the vocabulary, the grammar of this academic discipline, which is going to help you understand multiple issues. I tell people that, you know what, even if you are good enough to understand introductory macroeconomics, then this is a great foundation to begin with. Everything that you find around you, in fact, most things that you find around you are things which are the result of economic activities. All the three core economic activities of production, consumption and distribution, when they are associated with a territory, will form the economy of that territory. Good evening everyone. My name is Ranchan Kaul and I'm here to take the economy part of the NCERT series on our YouTube channel PW OnlyIAS English. Now, in continuation with the series, we have already covered some aspects of geography, we have already covered some aspects of polity. So I think there's not a lot to be discussed here in terms of what the scope of this series would be. The scope of this series, essentially speaking, is for you to have a decent foundation, is for you to have a decent start to your preparation. We are picking out on all those general studies subjects which have, some or the other relation to NCERTs. My task will be to cover the Indian economy portion of it. And before I begin, I would like you all to scan this QR code, and in this QR code, you will be led to my Telegram channel. And I've shared all my notes for Indian economy there, free of cost. You guys can start downloading them, you can compile them all and use them to whatever convenience that you find is necessary. Now, for you to understand the notes that I have shared on my Telegram channel, which cover the entire syllabus for Indian economy, you have to have some basic foundation to begin with. Now, typically in our classrooms, we tend to discuss this with our students also. There's many of you who come up who talk about how you guys are very new to this subject, you don't know anything about this subject. And sometimes this is something I'm forced to recommend to people also, that you can start by picking up NCERTs, and then they ask me which NCERTs to cover, which chapters to read, which chapters to skip. Sometimes people ask me, should we start from class 5th, class 6th onwards, or should class 11th, class 12th be sufficient enough? So forget about all of those problems now, because I have decided to take a compilation of all the relevant NCERTs for economics as a subject, which could give you a great foundation for you to begin your preparation. Now, what I've decided to do in this series is I'm going to be covering all NCERT books starting from class 6th itself. Class 6th to class 12th. Right from the book that talks about understanding the Indian society to introductory macro and introductory micro economics. I will be covering everything which is relevant from an exam's perspective for you guys. So you don't have to go back to these books and start reading them or rereading them over and over again. So in my compilation, everything from class 6th to class 12th, which is necessary for your examination, will be covered. Now, what all is necessary for your examination? Mind you, the syllabus is Indian economy. And this exam is a very issue-centric exam. So most questions will be around issues facing the Indian economy. For you to have a good grip on the issues facing Indian economy, you have to have a decent understanding of economics as a subject, because that is the language of this subject, the vocabulary, the grammar of this academic discipline, which is going to help you understand multiple issues as may show up in the news, for you to make your notes out of, for you to develop some understanding, some analysis, and also write your answers down. Now, Indian economy will require you some foundational aspects. These will be from what we call microeconomics, and macroeconomics. This is the music of the song. This is the vocabulary, the grammar of the subject. Between macro and microeconomics, you will find that there is two NCERTs that belong to class 12th. The book's name is Introductory Microeconomics and Introductory Macroeconomics. If you look at the syllabus for this examination, if you look at the questions which have been asked in the last 12 to 13 odd years since 2013, which is when the exam changed fundamentally, you will find that out of all these topics, the most relevant for civil services examination is introductory macroeconomics. There is an NCERT for introductory micro also, but every year they ask you around 18 to 20 questions from economics in the prelims examination and 8 questions from economics in the mains examination. Now, since 2013, consider that on an average they have asked us 15 questions from economics every year. That will be roughly a total of 180 to 190 questions that they have asked in prelims itself. And out of a total of 180, 190 questions, only 2 questions have been asked from microeconomics, and those 2 questions were so basic that even if you had read, you did not have a sufficient background in microeconomics, you would have gotten those questions right. So in terms of our effort, in terms of our focus, we have to selectively read items. We have to selectively pick up our sources and decide that these are the sources that we are going to read, understand, revise, make notes out of, and test ourselves on. You do not want to be investing your time across a range of books, across a range of multiple sources, because something that you cannot read again, something that you cannot revise, you're going to forget it in a week's time, or if you have great memory, in a month's time. So what we cannot revise, we should not pick in the first place itself. So what my task was, firstly, to solve this problem for you, which was, what books to read, what NCERTs to read. Idly speaking, in my classes, I tell people that, even if you are good enough to understand introductory macroeconomics, then this is a great foundation to begin with. But in my experience, especially at PW, I've seen a lot of kids who start very early, who are in the first year of college. Some kids are still out of school. Some of them are in the second year of college. And in fact, those people who are also graduates for that matter, who are starting their preparation for the first time, they tend to get confused a lot. They tend to think that if they skip the NCERTs from class 6th to class 10th, they are going to lose out a lot. So there's nothing I can do about this fear of missing out, the FOMO that gets created. So what I decided to do was, I scanned through all social science books since, you can say, from class 6 to class 12th, and I went through the table of contents. I even went through the chapters, and then I picked out all the relevant bits which are necessary for you to form a decent understanding of Indian economy, because this is where the meat of the matter lies. In your prelims examination, around 60% questions will be around issues facing the Indian economy. At max 40 to 50% questions will be on applied macroeconomics. In your mains examination, you will only be asked questions on Indian economy and issues facing the Indian economy. There will be no questions based on concepts of economics at all. Right? So if you know that your syllabus or the bulk of questions which are going to come will come from Indian economy, why do you want to waste your time reading up sources which are only going to eat up on the limited amount of time that you have, right? And they are going to bear no results for you. In fact, the return on investment is so poor that you will regret having gone through all NCERTs since class 6th. Which is why what I have decided to do here is to create a compilation of a series of lectures which is going to take up all the important and relevant bits which are going to form a very strong foundation for you to pick up Indian economy, the syllabus for mains, and start reading it. Before reading that, which you will also find notes for in my Telegram channel, I request you to just go through this entire series so that you do not fear what you're going to be appearing for. Now, moving forward, What is the sequence of this series going to be like? I will, in the first two YouTube lectures, here I will be covering two important aspects, which is introduction to what is meant by an economy plus foundational microeconomics, which is sufficient for you to move on and progress to bigger and better things. The next series of around 6 lectures, it could be 5, it could be 6 lectures, may even stretch to 7 or 8 depending upon how the progress goes. The remaining 6 lectures will be solely and solely focused on macroeconomics. Here we'll be covering national income accounting, we'll be covering money and monetary policy. Here we'll be covering fiscal policy, which is essentially speaking budgeting and taxation. We will also be covering the external sector. And if time permits, I will also take up a lecture, an introductory lecture on what is called developmental economics. We'll discuss what poverty means, what inequality means, what unemployment means, what growth means, and what development means. How are they all different from each other? After a series of 8 odd lectures, then you will have sufficient ground to start reading my notes, which are there on my Telegram channel itself. So if you want to, you can prepare Indian economy entirely for free, just from the resources that we are providing you here itself. Right? This would be the sequence. Introduction to what an economy means, fundamentals of microeconomics, first 2 lectures, right? And thereafter, we'll be picking up the most important bit for your understanding, which is the macroeconomics part of it all. Let's begin our lecture now, which is Introduction to Economy. I'll begin this lecture by asking you a question, and the question is, sometimes when you feel hungry at night, you have late night cravings, you go onto your mobile phone, you find this app, it could be Zomato, it could be Swiggy, depending upon your preference. You're browsing through multiple restaurants, you're browsing through multiple dishes, and then you add some of those items to your cart, you place an order, 20 minutes in, boom, you find hot cooked food welcoming you at your doorstep. Now, what makes all of this possible? Isn't this some sense of magic? That you know what, you were craving food at night, it was around 2 a.m., you placed an order on an app, on a mobile device, and then this food appears at your house. How does this all work? It all works fundamentally from what we call economic activities and the magic of what is called markets. All that it takes for things to just show up is these 2 things, economic activities and markets. The mobile phone over which you are placing an order for food, this has a long history behind it. It is the product of somebody's imagination who designed this phone, who thought of the features that could go into this phone. Thereafter, numerous resources were sourced from countries ranging from Africa to China, and these resources were then put together, were then assembled, and this phone was manufactured. This phone was then brought to you in the nearest location. You might have placed an order on Amazon.com, or you would have gone to your nearest iPhone store and bought this particular phone. Same is the case with food that you ordered at night. If you ordered a pizza, the bread that goes into the pizza, the sourdough bread, the cheese, the tomato, the basil leaves, all of those things were produced by some person else, were put together by another entity. You placed an order and that entity made sure that this food was received by you. everything that you find around you, in fact, most things that you find around you are things which are the result of economic activities. They are things which are a result of the magic of markets. Now, what are economic activities? When you start your day, let's say you're a college student, you start your day, right? You take a bath, somebody gets food for you, your mom cooks your food, you find that there is a housemaid who comes and cleans or does the cleaning. You find there are many people running around doing errands, right? You take a bath, you get your breakfast, and then you start. You sit in an auto, the auto takes you to the college, right? In the college, you find there are many teachers. Teachers teach you, the day is over, you come back home, and then you do whatever you want to. In the pursuit of the first half of your day, you find many people who are working. There are people who are cooking for you. There are people who are cleaning for you. There are people who are doing household chores. There is a person who helped you get transported from your house to the college and back. And in the college, you found there were many teachers committed to making you understand reality as it exists. Many people do many kinds of activities. Some activities they get paid for, while other activities they do not get paid for. If you think of work per se, you can divide work into broadly two categories. There are many different types of work. Some work that you get paid for, and some work that you do not get paid for. Such work that you get paid for, or such work where the consideration is money, and by default also such work which has some monetary value, this work, this kind of activity, we call them economic activities. While all that work which you are doing for any reason other than money, all such work for which you do not expect to get paid is going to be called non-economic activities. There is a significance of both of these kinds of activities, economic as well as non-economic. What are economic activities? Economic activities are those that are done for money or what is called money's worth. For instance, the auto driver who took you from your house to your college and dropped you off did not do that for free. He was expecting to get paid in return. You had to pay him something, and this is the reason why he agreed to drop you off from your house to your college. In the college, you find there are many professors, some senior, some junior. All of those are engaging in some activities, they are working. The output of their work concerns your education. But all of these people working for these colleges, these universities, these schools are doing this not because they want to do this purely. They are primarily doing it because they expect to get paid in return. Such work which is done for money is called an economic activity. But sometimes the consideration may not be money. Sometimes the consideration may be what is called money's worth. For instance, this auto driver is working, is trying to earn money. Why? Because he wants to feed his children. Now, if this auto driver dropped you off from your house to your college in exchange for something like, let's say, a pizza for that matter, the pizza would serve the same use as the money would, because at the end of the day, he would have used that money to buy food articles for himself and for his family. What you did was not pay him in money. What you did was that you gave him a big slice of pizza that he could directly eat. Provided he agreed to get paid in terms of pizza, the transaction was still successful. He agreed to drop you off from home to your college. Which means the consideration is not just money, the consideration could also be money's worth. For instance, the money that you would have taken from you was rupees 100, and this rupees 100, rupees 70, rupees 60, many auto rides that he is going to engage in throughout the course of the day eventually will total up to some of his revenues, which he is eventually going to serve, or which he is eventually going to spend on food itself. So what if people decide to just pay him food in exchange for this service that he is offering to people? Which is to say, the same money could be used to buy food. And if he agrees to drop you off for food, it is still an economic activity because he is doing it in exchange for money, or what is called money's worth. Money's worth would be the value of food expressed in monetary terms. At the end of the day, money is just a symbolic notation for other things. Such activities are what we call economic activities, activities done with the intent of producing something which will be sold in the market. Activities which are done primarily for the consideration of money, or what is called money's worth. The remaining activities are what we call non-economic activities. Non-economic activities are those which are done for any consideration other than money. In simple terms, you can tell yourself that non-economic activities are such activities which are done not for you to get some money out of it. They can be done for any other reason. There is no economic value of these activities. For instance, when you study, you are studying to achieve your goals. But studying is also work. Is somebody paying you to study? Are you getting paid for it? Absolutely not. When you see your mom making the choicest of vegetables, dishes for you, she is doing it because probably she loves you. Is she getting paid for it? Most likely not. When your father helps your family in terms of cleaning the household, does he expect to get paid after cleaning the entire house? Probably not. Such work for which you are not paid is going to be called non-economic activities, which means this is work which is done for any consideration, any benefit other than money. It could be love, it could be respect, it could be a sense of responsibility, it could be any other consideration, just not money. Which means that economic activities are such activities which have a certain monetary value. The auto driver took you off from home to your college, drove you from your home to your college. He performed some activity, and in return, he took 100 rupees from you in the form of the fare. This 100 rupee is the monetary value of the activity that he engaged in, which was to take you from your home to your college. While when your mom cooks for you, when she does the cleaning for you, when she, assists the elderly members of your household, she does not get paid for it. Because she does not get paid for it, there is no way of establishing what the monetary value for a non-economic activity would be. there is no such thing as monetary value for non-economic activities. So when you look around yourself, you find people working. Work fundamentally can be divided into two types of activities. Activities which you get paid for, they are called economic activities, and activities which you do not get paid for, they are called non-economic activities. In our subject, economics and economy, we are concerned mostly with economic activities or such activities which have a certain monetary value. Fundamentally, there are three core economic activities which are performed across the world. What are these three core economic activities? The first core economic activity is called production. The second is called consumption, and the third is called distribution. Across the world, there are many types of economic activities, but at the core of it all, economic activities fundamentally would be about these three things: production, consumption, or distribution. Let us try to understand each of these one by one. I will begin by going a little into depth here. Human beings have needs, human beings have wants. What are needs? Needs are things without which survival is difficult or impossible. There are things that we genuinely need for our survival. For instance, you require to stay somewhere, you require some safe shelter, you require food to survive, you also require water for yourself. You may also require to cover yourself up because we're all humans and civilized, right? You may require clothing as well. These are items which are essential for your survival. All such items which are essential for your survival, we will call them human needs. While there are other things, the absence of which is not going to threaten your survival per se. For instance, diamonds. For instance, gold jewelry. For instance, a mobile phone. For instance, a television. There are many items. Even if you don't have those items, you can still continue to survive and sometimes even thrive for that matter. If there is anyone amongst you who thinks that she genuinely or he genuinely needs a diamond solitaire, he cannot survive without it, send him to me. I will write a book for him on how to survive without a diamond or how to survive without gold jewelry. If there is anyone amongst you who thinks that mobile phone is now a part of his or her body, send him to me once again. I can tell him how to live without one. There are things which are absolutely critical for your survival. They are called human needs. There are some things which make your life convenient, which may add some value to your life, which may make it so much better, but without which you can still survive or sometimes even thrive for that matter. These are things that humans desire. These are what you call wants. Now, not all needs and wants can be satisfied naturally. Some needs can be satisfied through Mother Nature. For instance, if you're feeling hungry and you're walking down to your college, on your way you find a mango tree, right? You can climb the mango tree up, you can pluck a mango, you can eat it, and your survival is ensured or your need gets satiated, right? But when you're going to college, you do not want to go there buck naked. You do not want to show up in the college without any clothes. Now, clothes are not something which you can just pluck from a tree. Clothes are not something which you can dig out of Mother Earth. Clothes are not something which you have to deep dive into the ocean for. You don't have to dive into the aphotic zones of the oceans to find shirts, to find pants, and to find other garments. These are things which are produced by someone else, which means that not all our needs and wants are satisfied by nature. Some of our needs and wants, they will have to be produced. Right? If you're feeling very cold, it's the month of December, you can satisfy this need by having 3 people surround yourself and you can hug them all, right? You can enter into a bear hug of sorts. But what would your boss say? That'll be very weird in an office setting. You require a blanket maybe. You require maybe a jacket for that matter. And a blanket or a jacket you do not find in nature. Somebody makes it. The task of transforming what is available naturally into items which can be useful to you, that task is called production. So you begin by asking of yourself that what really is production? Production is a specific type of economic activity which is engaged in terms of production or extraction of natural resources, in terms of transformation of these natural resources into items which are of use to you. So amongst the 3 core economic activities, the first one, production. What kind of an economic activity is this? This is an economic activity which deals with the extraction and transformation of natural resources into items of use. This is what production is. It's a type of economic activity. People engage in production because they expect to get paid in return. This economic activity deals with either the extraction of natural resources or the transformation of natural resources into items which are of use to you. Now, the production is going to always create one or the other output. Any production activity will at the end of it leave you with something called an output, the outcome of that production activity. This output can be tangible. This output may be intangible. Where tangible means something that can be seen, something that can be touched, something that can be stored, something physical, which can be seen, which can be touched, which can be stored. Sometimes production leads to the creation of intangible items, items which cannot be seen, items which can not be touched, items which by virtue of not being able to be seen or touched also cannot be stored. That aspect of output which is tangible, this is called goods. While that outcome of production which is intangible, this is called services. Production is an economic activity which deals either in the extraction of natural resources or in the transformation of natural resources into items of use. The outcome of production processes can be things that you can see, that you can touch, and by that virtue can also store. These are called goods. While sometimes production activities may lead to creation of invisible benefits. The outcome of production could be something that you can't see, that you can't touch, and by that matter can also not store somewhere. The output, which is intangible, this is called services. So goods are those physical objects which are the result of economic activities, which can be seen, which can be touched, which can be stored. These are such objects which hold some use value for the end consumer, for the end user more specifically, and these are things which one can own or one can possess. Services, on the other hand, are such physical activities, or more specifically are such economic activities which are beneficial to people, but these are invisible, these are non-storable, and by that matter, or for that matter, these are also non-transferable. These are intangible. We can write it down here. What are goods and what are services? Both of them are outcomes of an economic activity which is called production. This is an outcome of production. It's a physical object. It is tangible in that it can be seen, it can be touched, and can also be stored. And this object holds some use value for another person. For example, a soap is a good. For example, the pen in my hand is a good. For example, this jacket that I'm wearing, this is a good. The spectacle that I'm wearing, this is a good. All of these have some use for me. These are all physical objects. These are things which can be seen, can be touched, can be stored somewhere, and all of them are useful. In comparison with goods, what are services? Services are also the outcomes of production, but services themselves are economic activities which are of some use to others, but these are invisible, these are non-transferable, and also non-storable. For instance, what I'm doing for you right now is the production of a service. Something which lies in my head, I'm translating that onto the board and I'm trying to help you understand things. When you require a haircut, you have to go to a barber. You tell him what your requirements are, you tell him to give you a fade or not, you tell him to keep the top a little voluminous or maybe, shave it all off, right? The barber creates the haircutting as a service for you. You at the age of 22 for some reason have developed knee issues. You don't know what's wrong with your knees. But somebody in the economy will know. Some person who has trained himself or herself in medical science. So you go to a hospital or you go to a doctor more specifically. You tell the doctor your concern. The doctor physically examines you or maybe sometimes not. And the doctor prescribes you something on a piece of paper. He has seen many cases like you and he has a lot of information up in his head, stored in his head, which he has to run through to examine your case and subscribe and to prescribe to you something of a medicine of sorts. That is the creation of healthcare as a service. You have education, you have healthcare, you have transportation, you have storage, you have communication. There are many services which are once again the outcomes of production. These outcomes are intangible, invisible, non-storable, non-transferable. Services, remember this, are consumed the moment they are produced. These are not storable, which means you cannot send 300 rupees to your barber and tell him to pack hair cutting as a service so that you can use it later when you come back from college. You have to be exactly where the service is being produced to consume it. They are consumed the moment they are produced. This is also what is referred to as services are intensely local. For you to get healthcare consultation as a service, you and the doctor have to be around each other. This healthcare service is not going to be able to be stored somewhere so you can, get it packed and use it later. This is the fundamental difference between the outcomes of production, between goods and between services. So production is one of the core economic activities which deals in either the extraction of natural resources or in the transformation of natural resources into items of use. These items, which are the outcomes of production, can be of two types. They can either be physical goods or they can be services. The difference has been written on the board for you. Now the second core activity is the core activity of what is called consumption. We began by saying that humans have needs and wants. Not all needs and wants can be satisfied naturally, which means some needs and wants will be satiated by things which are produced artificially, which means these needs and wants will be satisfied through output in the form of goods or in the form of services. The production of this output is the task of what is called firms. These goods and services have a certain use value for you. There is a firm called Physics Wala. We make services, educational services, because these services can be used by aspirants. There is this hospital called Apollo, and Apollo creates healthcare services because that healthcare service could be used by people who are unhealthy, people who are sick, who are infirm, people who have gotten handicapped, who have unfortunately been a part of an accident somewhere. There are goods like soaps being created in the economy in the hopes that some people will find them useful. And you want to keep yourself clean, you want to be smelling good throughout the day, you would want to maintain personal hygiene, towards which soap has a certain use value. The output of production is goods and services which hold some use value, which in economics is also called utility. Consumption is an economic activity which is all about using these goods and services. How do you define consumption? Such economic activities which are about using the output of production. That means producers create output which has some utility for the consumers. When consumers use this output, when they realize the utility of this output, that economic activity is called consumption. And mind you, not all kinds of consumption would be an economic activity. Only such kind of consumption which carries a monetary value would be an economic activity. For example, you have a garden in your house, you feel hungry, you go pluck a guava from your garden itself and you consume it. Now you did not have to pay nobody for that particular guava and you satiated your needs and wants. This activity is also work. This activity is you realizing the use value of a guava because it can satiate your hunger. But this activity does not have any monetary value because you did not have to pay anybody for it. Compare this with you being at your college, you feel hungry, right? You have to go to the college canteen and you want to order a potato puff. This person is not going to give you a potato puff for free. You will have to pay him 20 rupees. Only then does he give you a potato puff back. Which means for you to have consumed that potato puff, you had to spend something, you had to spend some money, which means this activity of consumption also had some monetary value assigned to it. Only those economic activities which deal in using the output of production and which carry a monetary value, only they will be called consumption as core economic activities. The third core economic activity is one that of distribution. What it means is you are very picky about your personal hygiene. You want to smell good, you don't want to appear dirty in front of your classmates. You could really require a deodorant. Now, this deodorant is not available naturally. This deodorant is being made by a certain firm, let's call it Axe Private Limited. Now, Axe Private Limited, in terms of their output, create something called deodorants which people can find useful. Axe is not going to give you these deodorants, right? These deodorants are not going to reach you magically. These deodorants will have to be brought at your nearest location. That aspect is one that of distribution. Distribution is the third core economic activity which ensures that the output of production, that goods and services are exchanged, or you can say, or are they reach from the producers to the consumers. Which means you would have liked to spray yourself with a lot of deodorant. This deodorant is not going to magically appear in your hands. Whoever makes this deodorant will have to ensure that they build something called a supply chain so that this deodorant reaches from the factory to your nearest location where you can go and buy it. That activity which makes sure that goods and services are transported or are they reach from the place of their production to the place of their consumption, that core economic activity is called distribution. And distribution as an economic activity is primarily done at a place which is called markets. You have to go to a market to go fetch that deodorant, right? So all in all, you will find that in an economy, there are consumers presenting with their needs and wants. Some of these needs and wants will be satiated by producers who are going to produce goods and services. These needs and wants will be satisfied through the consumption of goods and services. Producers are going to give you these goods and services provided you give something back to them which is of value to them, money. This process is the process of exchange or is the process of distribution. So, three core economic activities. One economic activity, core economic activity would be consumption. another is production, and the third is called distribution or exchange. These are your three core economic activities which lie at the heart of any economy across the world. All of these three core economic activities, one that of production, consumption and distribution, when they are associated with a certain territory, when these three core economic activities of production, of consumption, of distribution of these goods and services happening within a territory will form what is called the economy of that territory. For instance, the state to which you belong, you will find that there are many consumers in the state, there are many producers in the state, right? And then there is a market in that place also. There are many markets in the place too. This activity of production, consumption and distribution of goods and services happening within your state will form the economy of your state. At the national level, India has many people who are consumers, India has many producers and consumers are exchanging goods and services in what is called markets throughout the country. Right? This forms the economy of India, or what we call Indian economy. So what is economy? All the three core economic activities of production, consumption and distribution, when they are associated with a territory, will form the economy of that territory. Now, taking the Indian economy into perspective, specifically from the point of view of production of an activity, right? Taking into consideration the various types of economic activities, we have something called sectors of the Indian economy. Depending upon what is the type of economic activity being performed, you can have three sectors of the Indian economy. The first sector is called the primary sector. The second sector will be called secondary sector, and the third sector is going to be called tertiary sector. Fundamentally, this classification is on the basis of the output of each of these sectors, the nature of economic activities performed and the output of these economic activities that leads us to classify any economy or the economic activities in that economy, more specifically the economic activity of production in that economy, into three sectors. This is also what you call sectoral classification of any economy. The primary sector is a sector which is directly dependent on nature. It is that sector of the economy which produces raw materials or extracts natural resources. The output of the primary sector of an economy is natural products. These are products that are made naturally or are extracted from the nature itself. This sector is called primary sector. Why? Because the output of this sector, which is natural products, they will then go into making other items. And in the primary sector, you have two major types of economic activities. One is called agriculture and allied sectors, and the second one is mining and quarrying. Agriculture and allied sector will include within it crop farming, livestock, fisheries, forestry and logging. Mining and quarrying is about mining something out of the Mother Earth. Mining and quarrying you can think of as mining on the surface or shallow mining of sorts, right? While mining more specifically will be about depths into the land itself. Look at the outcomes of these types of economic activities. The pizza that you just ate had wheat in it. Wheat is a natural product, but there are some agents in the economy which produce wheat. Although they are dependent on nature, but not entirely dependent on nature in the production of wheat. Similarly, the gate that exists right outside your house is made of iron. But iron comes from iron ore, which is a natural resource. Iron ore is not going to automatically transform into an iron gate. Somebody will have to first extract this iron ore, then extract iron and derivative products such as steel out of it, and then use them to make other items. The outcome of the primary sector is a natural product, and this sector produces raw materials or natural resources. Extraction of natural resources is what the sector is going to be concerned with. Primarily two subcomponents, agriculture and the allied sector, and the second component is mining and quarrying. Remember, the outcome is a natural product. Now, what is the secondary sector? Also sometimes called the manufacturing sector or the industrial sector. The secondary sector is one which deals in the transformation of the output of the primary sector per se. Which means in the secondary sector, the economic activities of production will be fundamentally about transforming, or what you can also simply call processing, of the output of the primary sector to produce what we call finished goods that can directly be consumed or may go into further production. The transformation or the processing of the output of the primary sector, this transformation of processing is going to happen at an industrial level, and this transformation is going to produce something which is called finished goods. Here what you produce is a raw material, a material in an unprocessed form. But here what you produce is called a finished good. This finished good can either directly be consumed or may go into further production. For example, mobile phones are being manufactured. Mobile phones we all consume directly. Televisions are being manufactured. We can all consume televisions directly. But from the primary sector, iron ore was extracted, and iron ore was therefore thereafter transformed or processed into iron and steel. Iron and steel, you can use them directly, or iron and steel is going to go into further production of cars, of bikes, of scaffolding around construction. There are many outputs of which iron and steel is going to form a basic part of. This sector, which deals in the transformation of the output of the primary sector into finished goods or into the manufacturing of these finished goods, is going to be called the secondary sector. Fundamentally, what all is a part of the secondary sector? You will have three things here: manufacturing, construction, and the third thing which is going to be involved in the secondary sector is going to be what is called utilities. Water, electricity, and fuel, other types of fuel. the extraction of crude getting converted into petrol, diesel and related fuel products. Only look at the outcomes of each of these sectors. The third sector is rather important. The third sector of the economy is called the tertiary sector. What does the tertiary sector produce? Remember, the tertiary sector does not produce finished goods. Finished goods. The outcome of the tertiary sector is intangible. They produce services, and these services are going to support. These are economic activities which support the production, the distribution and consumption of other goods and services. Or what you can simply say is that the output of the tertiary sector is going to support the other two sectors, one the primary sector as well as the secondary sector. The important point of distinction here being that the tertiary sector of the economy does not produce finished goods, it produces services. Services such as education. If you have an educated workforce, there is a good chance that you'll be able to extract more, you'll be able to extract more out of the land, you'll be able to extract more out of your natural resources, right? Because those educated people will create better technologies. Healthcare. Not only do you require your workers to be educated, you also want them to be healthy so that they do not lose a lot of man hours. Travel, tourism, trade, repair and maintenance, banking and such financial services, banking and the financial services industry, real estate, not construction, but the sale of the real estate output. You have many sectors that you can think of: communication, public administration, many such services which are supporting the primary and secondary sector of the economy. The outcome of the tertiary sector is not a finished good. The outcome of the secondary sector is what is called services, which is why this sector is also popularly called the services sector. The primary sector is popularly called the agriculture and the allied sector, but please don't make that mistake of thinking that the primary sector only has agriculture and allied activities. It has agriculture and allied activities plus mining and quarrying. The secondary sector of the economy is something which is popularly called the industrial sector of the economy, while you should know that the secondary sector will have not just industries or manufacturing, it will also have construction, it will also have utilities in the form of water, electricity and fuel. The third sector is the tertiary sector, also popularly called the services sector, engages in the production of services which supports the primary as well as the secondary sector of the economy. This was your introduction to any economy. An economy is simply put the three core economic activities of production, consumption and distribution associated with a specific territory. Based on the kind of production which is carried out, any economy can be classified into three sectors depending upon the nature of the output produced: the primary sector, the secondary sector and the tertiary sector. Depending upon how much of each of these sectors contributes to the total output of an economy, or depending upon how much of each of these sectors contributes in terms of employment in the economy, you will have something called the structure of an economy. You have some economies which you call primary economies. These are those where the primary sector contributes the most in terms of the output produced by the economy, or contributes the most in terms of the share of employment. Some economies such as China are manufacturing economies or manufacturing giants, because manufacturing forms a lion's share of the output of those economies. And then we have economies like India, which are service-based economies, where services, in terms of the total output being produced by the economy, contributes roughly around 55% of it. This is what is called the economic structure of any economy. With that said, the introduction to any economy is over. Tomorrow, we are going to be taking up what is called market and market competition. Therein, we'll be studying demand, supply, and elasticity, the three microeconomic concepts that you have to be absolutely clear about. Let's meet you in the next lecture. Thank you.